When you work as a paramedic, the first thing they teach you about triage is that your feelings don't matter. You're not there to grieve. You're there to assess, categorize, and act. The worst calls aren't the loud ones. They're the quiet ones, where someone hands you a situation and you already know the outcome before you've touched anything. I thought about triage a lot the afternoon. My parents handed me an envelope across their kitchen table and told me it was a family matter. I'm a paramedic. Have been for 11 years, working out of a station in Edmonton's northeast end. It's not the kind of job you explain at dinner parties. You just say it and watch people decide whether to ask follow-up questions. Most don't. What I'll tell you is that the job taught me to stay calm when everything else isn't. To keep my hands steady and my voice flat while the world comes apart around me. I thought that was a professional skill. It turned out to be the only thing that got me through the worst day of my life, without losing my mind. Fleek. My wife and I had been together for 9 years. Married for 6. Our daughter Willa was 7 years old and had recently decided that polar bears were the greatest animals ever to exist. A fact she was prepared to argue with anyone who disagreed. She carried a stuffed polar bear named Captain everywhere. She drew polar bear families in the margins of her homework. Her teacher had started incorporating Arctic unit plans into the curriculum, just to channel the enthusiasm somewhere productive. My wife's name was Blythe. We'd met at a mutual friend's cabin near Pigeon Lake this summer, after I finished my EMT certification. She was finishing her interior design degree, laughing at something someone said across a bonfire. And I'd thought, I'd like to know a person who laughs like that. For years I was right about that. My brother is 4 years younger than me. He's always been the one my parents had to adjust for. When I was 15 and picking up weekend shifts at a grocery store to save for my first car, he was 13, and getting driving lessons on our dad's dime to prepare him early. When I worked through college, he took a gap year that turned into 2, funded by a monthly transfer from my parents' account, that they never quite mentioned to me directly. I don't say this with bitterness anymore, it's just facts. Some families have a child they protect from consequence. Ours did. He was it. He and Blythe had always gotten along. Too well in retrospect. But when you trust people, you read things generously. My mom, Constance, called me on a Tuesday in November. She asked if I could bring Willa to dinner that Saturday. Your father and I want to see her, she said. We haven't had the whole family together in a while. That part should have been the tell. We don't have the whole family together for no reason. We do Sunday dinners sometimes. We do Christmas and Easter. We don't schedule mid-November family dinners on a Tuesday call. With a specific request to bring the grandchild. Blythe had been quieter than usual that week. She said she wasn't sleeping well. Work stress, she said. A difficult client. Saturday came. I buckled Willa into the back seat with Captain and a coloring book. She talked the entire drive about how polar bears have black skin under white fur, which she'd learned from a library book, and considered essential information for all adults to receive immediately. Did you know that, Dad? I did not. You should tell people at work. I'll add it to the debrief. We pulled into my parents' driveway. My brother's truck was already there. That alone wasn't strange. But the way he was standing near the front window when I got out, and the way he looked past me when I waved, that was strange. He turned away before I reached the door. My dad, Morris, met us in the entryway. He hugged Willa first, then me. But he held on a beat too long, the way people do when they owe you something. The dining room table was set for a meal we weren't going to have. There were placemats and water glasses and a centerpiece my mom had probably arranged that morning to make things feel normal. It didn't feel normal. Blythe was already seated. She didn't get up when I walked in. Dad, can I go draw in the living room? Willa asked. Sure, sweetheart. I handed her the coloring book. Stay where I can hear you. She disappeared around the corner and immediately started narrating something about a polar bear rescue mission. That sound, her voice, that's specific frequency, completely untouched by what was about to happen, carved itself into my memory and has stayed there since. My brother sat down, didn't look at me. My dad sat at the head of the table, hands folded, and slid a document across to me. Not an envelope. Just a single printed sheet, folded in thirds, the way you'd fold a letter lab letterhead. Results from a private genetics company. Prenatal paternity testing. I unfolded it, and read it. I read it again. Alleged biological father, my brother. Mother. Blythe. Gestational age, 11 weeks. No one spoke while I read. I could hear Willa in the other room. Captain says the ice is very slippery, but he can handle it. I set the paper down on the table. We wanted to tell you together, my mom said. Her voice was doing that careful thing it does. Calibrated to prevent escalation. Like I was something that needed calibrating. As a family. I looked at Blythe. She was stiff at the table. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying fully yet. like she was holding it in reserve. How long? I asked. My voice came out flatter than I expected. Professional. My brother said nothing. He was examining a knot in the wood of the table, like it held information he urgently needed. It started in the spring, Blythe said, barely audible. It wasn't we didn't mean. 7 months. It wasn't a question, I was doing the math. These things are complicated, my dad said. He pressed his palms flat on the table. This is a terrible thing, we know that. But you're all family. We need to find a way through this that doesn't tear everything apart. I noticed, sitting there, that my hands weren't shaking. 11 years of training. When the structure fails, you don't panic. You triage. You've always been the responsible one, my mom said. She reached across toward my hand. I moved it to my lap. We need you to be that right now. For Willa. For the family. For the family. I looked around the table. My parents, who had raised me to believe that accountability meant something. My brother, who had coasted through 31 years on the understanding that someone would always clean up after him. My wife of 6 years, who had apparently decided that he was worth the wreckage. From the living room, Captain is leading the rescue team. They have special boots. I stood up. Everyone at the table went rigid, waiting for the thing they'd been bracing for. The confrontation, the moment they'd have to manage. I didn't give it to them. I walked into the living room, crouched down next to Willa and said, "Hey, time to go, bud." She looked up from her drawing. But Captain just got to the glacier. He can continue the mission from home. Pack him up. She tucked Captain under her arm and took my hand. I grabbed our coats from the front closet. Blythe appeared in the doorway. "Where are you going?" I didn't answer. "We're not finished talking." I opened the fronted door. "You can't just leave," she said, and her voice cracked. I could. I did. Willa and I walked to the truck. I got her buckled in. She asked if we could stop for hot chocolate. I said yes. We went through a Tim Hortons drive-thru on the way home. She got a small hot chocolate and told me about the glacier rescue the entire drive back. I made pasta for dinner. Not because I wanted pasta. Because she wanted pasta, and the small architecture of her evening, dinner, bath, 2 chapters of her book, Captain tucked in beside her, had to stay intact regardless of what was falling apart behind the walls. I did the voices she wanted. I asked about her friends. I listened to a detailed update about a boy in her class who had been claiming that polar bears were slower than grizzlies, which she had taken as a personal challenge requiring formal rebuttal. "He's wrong," she said confidently. "He's very wrong," I agreed. Nightlight on, door open, Captain accounted for. Then I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and didn't move for a while. The house was quiet. Blythe's coffee maker sat on the counter. Her reading glasses were folded next to a novel she'd been working through for 3 weeks. All of it so ordinary, all of it no longer making sense. I opened our joint account at TD. The balance was a $134,800. We'd been saving for a larger place, watching the Edmonton market, patient the way we'd agreed to be together. I transferred half, $67 to my individual account. Time-stamped, documented, clean. Then I searched for a family lawyer in Edmonton. Found someone named Elena Chen. 15 years of practice, former Crown Counsel. Her website mentioned evening consultations by appointment. I called, she answered. I told her, in 3 sentences, what had happened. She asked how old my daughter was. 7. She said, "Come in Monday morning, bring the document." Sunday I dropped Willa at my station chief's house. He and his wife had 3 kids and Willa knew them well. I said I had something to handle. He didn't ask what. Monday morning I was in Elena Chen's office by 8:30. By 10 I had a strategy. Primary physical custody was achievable. The circumstances, confirmed paternity, the nature of the affair, the fact that I was the stable daily routine parent in Willa's life, put me in a strong position under Alberta's family law framework. An emergency interim order was possible within the week. How fast? I asked. File by end of week. Interim order within days after that. Do it. By noon, I was back at the station asking my supervisor about the open position at the Kelowna EMS station. I'd known about the posting for 2 months. Slight pay increase, quieter caseload, different, Lank I'd mentioned it to Blythe once and she'd said she didn't want to leave. Her parents, her clients, her life here. Still available, I asked. He said, "You sure about this? Transfer can go in this week. If you're certain." I'm certain. Blythe came home that evening. She'd been staying at my parents' place, which told me exactly whose corner everyone had settled into, but she had a key, and she eventually came back. I was in the kitchen when I heard her, at the front door. She stopped when she saw me. I watched her take in the room, the gaps on the bookshelves, The missing objects. The way the space had already begun reorganizing around an absence. "We need to talk," she said. Agreed. One. She stepped into the living room, looked at the hallway closet, door open. "My jacket's gone." "What did you do?" Her voice shifted. Not the version of herself from the dining room table, defensive now. "Divorce papers were filed Friday," I said. "You'll be served this week. Interim custody order is already in place." The color changed in her face. "You can't just, she's my daughter. You don't get to decide." "You made decisions for 7 months," I said. "I made mine in 5 days." She tried for a different angle. Offered therapy. Said she'd cut contact with my brother. Said she'd do anything, go anywhere. That she understood she'd broken something. But that things could be repaired if I was willing. I thought about the last 7 months. The nights she'd come home quiet. The weekends she'd spent at her sister's. The way she'd said she didn't want to move to Kelowna. Not because of her clients. I understood now, but because of him. "Where are you going?" she asked finally. Her voice had gone small. "Kelowna. Transfers approved." She stared at me, like I'd said something in another language. "The interim order accounts for the relocation," I said. "The judge signed off Thursday." She stood there processing the timeline. That I'd moved through all of this. The lawyer, the filing, the transfer, the judge's signature. While she'd been at my parents' place waiting for me to arrive at grief on their schedule. "You've been planning this since Saturday," she said. "Since Sunday, technically. Saturday I made hot chocolate and pasta." She tried for another hour. Tears, then anger, then a kind of bargaining that kept shifting form the way bargaining does, when none of the offers are actually what the other person needs. When she finally left, the door didn't slam. She just went. Maybe she'd expected more from me. More noise. Something she could react to. I didn't have any of that for her. The next 2 weeks were logistics. Willa's school records requested. A rental house found in Kelowna's Lower Mission area. 3 bedrooms, small backyard. An elementary school within walking distance. A bike path running along the lake. I signed the lease online. I packed what mattered. Willa's bed, her bookshelf, her art supplies. Her collection of polar bear drawings organized into a folder she kept under her mattress like something precious. My work gear, my tools, enough furniture to make a home. The rest stayed. Part of the settlement eventually. I blocked my brother's number the morning I loaded the moving truck. Then my parents, then 3 of Blythe's friends, who had apparently decided this was their business too. Then Blythe's number itself. The notification stopped. The quiet was immediate and specific, like stepping out of a building where the ventilation has been too loud for so long you'd stop noticing it. Willa sat in the passenger seat with Captain on her lap. I'd told her we were moving to a new city, with mountains and a lake, that her room would have a window that faced the hills. "Are there polar bears there?" she asked. "Not in town, but there are black bears." "Is that almost as good?" "Bears are bears." She considered this with great seriousness. "Okay, but I'm still team polar bear." "Obviously." She fell asleep somewhere past Revelstoke. I drove the last stretch alone in the dark with the mountains invisible on either side of the highway. But present somehow. The way you can feel weight even when you can't see what's carrying it. The first week was difficult. The way the first week of anything new is difficult. "Willa?" cried the second night. Said she missed her room, said her drawings were all mixed up from the move. I sat on the edge of her bed. "This is home now," I told her. "It's going to feel like it soon." She didn't believe me. But she was 7. Kids recalibrate faster than adults do. We could learn something from that if we paid attention. By week 3, she'd stopped asking about going back. By week 5, she came home from school with a drawing. 2 girls with their names written below them in careful block letters. Standing in front of what I recognized as the playground near our house. Her new best friend's name was Suri. She'd drawn them both in winter hats with pom-poms. "She has a dog," Willa informed me. "A real one, not stuffed." "Better than stuffed." She weighed this philosophically. "Different kind of good." Work was steadier than I expected. The Kelowna station was smaller and tighter than Edmonton's. People knew each other here. I wasn't sure at first whether that would be a problem. I'd come in quiet and I wasn't particularly interested in explaining myself. It turned out to be the opposite of a problem. They pulled me into things quickly, training sessions, protocol reviews I'd been refining for years. Community outreach. My supervisor told me, after the first month, that I was the most prepared lateral transfer she'd seen in 8 years. I said I'd had time to focus. Elena called every few weeks. I let most of it go to voicemail and returned calls when Willa was at school. "She's pushing back on the relocation distance," Elena said in December. "Wants primary custody revisited. Wants the house proceeds. Offer equal split on the house." Standard parenting time if she relocates within 100 kilometers of Kelowna. No spousal support based on the adultery provisions. File it. She won't like it. That's the offer. The judge sided with us on what mattered. Blythe's lawyer tried to frame the move as punitive, argued it had disrupted Willa's stability. Elena submitted documentation. School reports showing improvement, a counselor's notes, consistent routines, and the straightforward fact that Blythe had made zero effort to close the distance in 4 months. Hard to argue your child needs you when you won't get in the car. Blythe never moved, never came back to modify the order after the first attempt was withdrawn. The parenting time clause sat in the paperwork the way some clauses do. Present but untouched, like a door no one ever tried to open. Willa stopped bringing her up after a couple of months. Not in a way that worried me. More in the way children eventually learn to calibrate their expectations to what's actually in front of them, rather than what they hoped might appear. I made the mistake of not blocking my parents' email addresses right away. My mom's message came in December. Subject line, please. Just please. She said I was punishing Willa by cutting her off from family. She said my brother had made a mistake, but mistakes were what families move through together. She used the word cruel twice. I read it in my truck before a shift. Sat with it. Thought about the word mistake. Thought about 7 months of it. Deleted the email, blocked the address. My brother found a new way in. A different email account, unfamiliar name. Subject line, I know you won't answer this but. He said he was sorry. He said he didn't know how to make it right. He mentioned that the baby was due in the spring. I typed one line back. You don't need to figure out how to make it right. I already made things right on my end. Then I blocked that address too and didn't think about it again. My dad tried calling from an unknown number in January. I answered by accident while bringing in groceries. His voice launched immediately. Son, just listen to me for a minute. I said. I listened in November. I heard everything I needed to hear. Then I hung up. January also brought the sale of the Edmonton house. The market had softened slightly but we cleared well over what we'd put into it. The settlement proceeds came through in a lump sum. I deposited my share, used a portion toward purchasing the Kelowna rental outright. The owners had decided to sell and offered me first right. 3 bedrooms. The backyard, the window toward the hills. I signed on a Thursday morning. That Saturday I built Willa a raised garden bed in the backyard. She stood beside me in rubber boots, handing me screws with enormous deliberateness, informing me that polar bears were excellent swimmers, and that if we lived near the ocean we might eventually see one. I told her Kelowna was landlocked. She accepted this with the philosophical flexibility of someone who has bigger problems. Namely whether we could grow carrots. What do polar bears have to do with carrots? Nothing. I just want carrots. Fair enough. I opened and RESP for Willa that spring. Contributed enough to trigger the Maximum Canada Education Savings Grant for the year. Also maxed out my TFSA for the first time since I'd opened one. Not dramatic, just the steady patient work of building something real. The divorce decree came through in February. Elena's email was 4 sentences, final order executed. Clean break. No outstanding motions. You're clear. I printed it, filed it in the cabinet next to Willa's immunization records and her school progress reports. Made dinner. March brought the start of Willa's first skating season. She'd been asking since September. There was a rink 10 minutes from the house. And she passed it every week on the way to school. I signed her up for Saturday morning learn to skate lessons. I became one of those dads who stands at the boards. Within a month I'd volunteered to help run drills for the beginner group. I'm not a hockey player, never have been, but I can follow instructions and the head instructor was stretched thin. Willa fell down a lot at first. That's the nature of it. The beginning of skating is just controlled falling, learning where the edges are by finding them the hard way. But she approached it the same way she approached everything she'd decided to care about. She'd get up, wipe her palms on her leggings, and try again. No drama. Just continuation. By April, she could skate without touching the boards. There was a small end-of-season showcase in May. Parents lining the ice. Kids doing their routines, some of them still shaky, some of them moving with a fluency that surprised you. Willa was the latter. Something had clicked for her in the repetition. Near the end there was an open skate period. The instructor told them they could try whatever they'd been working on. Willa skated to the middle of the ice. I watched her take a breath. Then she skated a full lap. Not cautious. Not hugging the wall, arms out, face tipped up toward the arena lights, just moving the way a person moves when they've finally stopped thinking about it. She came off the ice toward me, flushed, and grinning, and a little out of breath. Dad, did you see? I saw the whole thing. She hugged me around the middle, still in her skates, head against my chest. I stood there holding on with the sounds of the rink around us. Blades on ice, other parents talking, the PA system running through something low in the background. And something in me that had been very still for a long time went quiet in a different way. Not the quiet of shutting things out. The quiet of not needing to. This is what it was all for, I thought. Not to escape something. To arrive somewhere. She pulled back. Can we get butter chicken after? We can absolutely get butter chicken after. She skated back out to find Suri. My phone buzzed once. I glanced at it. An unknown number that I'd seen before. Routed from the old forwarding path. I let it ring and put the phone back in my pocket. The settlement had fully cleared by then. Willa's RESP had a solid base in it. The kind that would actually be meaningful in 11 years. I'd started contributing consistently to my own retirement savings too. Nothing extravagant. Just sustainable. A mutual acquaintance had texted me in April, someone I hadn't cut entirely, a person from the Edmonton station who'd known me for years. He said, "Your brother's baby was born. A girl. Thought you should know." I'd been in the parking lot after Willa's skating lesson, when the message came through. I sat in the truck and read it. Thought about a child being born into that situation. My parents' house, my brother's particular gift for drifting past consequences. Everyone adjusting around him the way they always had. I typed back, "Thanks for letting me know. That's the extent of my involvement." He said, "Fair enough. You doing okay?" I said, "Better than okay." He said he was glad. That was the last time we talked about any of it. My supervisor put my name forward for a mentorship role, with the new hires coming on in the fall. I said, yes, it was the kind of work I was good at. Not managing people so much as showing them what steady looks like when the situation isn't. Willa turned 8 in July. I strung lights in the backyard. Suri came, and 4 other kids from her class, and the afternoon was pizza, and running through the sprinkler, and exactly the kind of birthday a kid should have. Uncomplicated, loud, thoroughly hers. She blew out her candles and made a wish. "Can you tell me?" I asked. "No, but it's not a secret. It's just that it counts more if you don't say it out loud." That's a very sophisticated understanding of birthday wishes. She shrugged. "Suri taught me. After the last kid was picked up, after the leftover cake was wrapped, and the lights were still going in the backyard, Willa sat on the porch steps with Captain in her lap, watching the evening come down over the hills. The light in Kelowna in July goes golden, in a way that makes you understand why people stay. "Dad," she said. "Yeah. Are we going to stay here a long time?" I thought about the house I owned now. The garden we'd planted together. The rink I drove to every Saturday morning without thinking twice. The station that had started to feel like mine. The slow, accumulating weight of a life being built rather than just lived in. "A long time," I said. "Yeah." She leaned back against the porch rail, satisfied. "Good. Because I think the carrots are almost ready and I don't want to miss them. Can't leave before the carrots." "Exactly, Vangt." She went to bed without much resistance. I stayed outside for a while after. With the backyard quiet and the last of the light going. I thought about what my dad had said at that dining room table. Think about family. Think about what Willa will grow up watching. I had thought about it every day since, I still do. I thought about what she's growing up watching now. A backyard with something growing in it that she helped plant. Skates that fit her. A desk covered in drawings of things she loves. A dad who shows up, every single day, without exception or condition. My mom had said I was raised better than this. She meant I was raised to absorb things quietly and keep the family intact. Maybe she was right about how I was raised. But I'd spent 11 years learning a different lesson. One call at a time. Some things can't be saved by staying near them. Some things you have to step back from to survive. The skill isn't in trying harder. The skill is in knowing the difference. I stepped back. I built something better instead. Elena's final email had come in June. Blythe's lawyer withdrew the last motion without prejudice. No further filings anticipated. Case closed. I'd read it standing in the driveway after a morning shift. Typed back, "Thank you for everything." Then I put the phone in my pocket and went inside to start dinner. My new number reached exactly 8 people. My supervisor, Elena, Willa's school, her pediatrician, Suri's mom, 2 colleagues from the station, and my station chief back in Edmonton, who had covered for me that first Sunday without asking questions and deserved to know I was all right. The old number had stopped receiving attempts months ago. I'd canceled the forwarding in the spring. Whatever they were still trying to say. I'd stopped being a place where it could land. They wanted me to forgive so that everyone else could go back to feeling fine. So the family could call itself a family without dealing with what that word had actually cost me. I wanted something simpler. Not revenge. Not the satisfaction of watching anyone suffer. Just the quiet, Deliberate decision to remove myself from a situation that was never going to be honest with me. And go somewhere I could build something true. I have that. Now. A house I own, a daughter who is thriving, a city I chose, a life with enough room in it to breathe. I triaged, I made the call, and I walked away from what couldn't be saved. Some people will say that's cold. That's fine. The people who matter most, all 7 years and 4 months of her, asleep upstairs with Captain tucked in beside her, she doesn't think so. And out here, on the western side of the Rockies, with the summer almost gone and the carrots nearly ready, and everything still ahead of us, neither do I.